Hello, hello! If you clicked on this video, you might be a graduating high school senior who has to make a decision on what to do with the rest of their life. And I'm here to help you with one of those potential questions. Should I major in architecture? I don't know. So if you've been watching my videos for a little bit, you would know that I usually make a week in the life of an architecture student, and I did that every semester of my... Cool! I did that every semester for my first 2 years, and I realized I can't do that anymore. It takes up way too much time, architecture's getting harder. I need to manage my time a little bit better. I also get a lot of comments asking me so many questions. I wanted to put everything in one video to be a little bit more helpful. So we can start with a little context. I go to the University of Florida, and I just got accepted into upper division architecture, so it's gonna get even harder. Just because upper division is focused more on your technical skills and your projects become a little bit more realistic. I'm also picking up a minor, so that one's on me. I've always wanted to be an architect. Since I was little, it was like my default answer for what do you want to be when you grow up. But then as I got older, I was like, yeah, I really do want to do that. I find myself being a creative person, and why wouldn't I want to do that in my career? Architecture to me is one of those subjects that you kind of pull from every discipline. You're presented with these like social issues or questions, and you're expected to produce a tangible, effective solution to those questions. So if you're really big on problem solving, coming up with new ideas, designing, being creative, it's definitely for you. I really should look up these facts. You say you major in architecture, and then you forget everything that you're supposed to say. Oh baby, we love materials. Ah, I found it. Okay. In order to become an architect, you have to have an NCARB accredited professional degree, a Bachelor of Architecture and Masters of Architecture. And then you have to do around 3,700 hours of interning, so you get experience actually at an office. You start to learn all of the different sections of the NCARB, which you then have to take around 6 or 7-ish exams called the ARE exams. And then you can get your license. So it's a lot. This is my second year at the firm that I've worked at. It's been a really sweet experience. I talked to my boss a lot about how it's so important that you start early with your interning because it really helps while you're in school. In school, you're kind of taught all these abstract, crazy conceptual ideas, and then at the firm, you kind of realize, oh, this is actually what happens. This is like what architects in real life do. I love the University of Florida's architecture program because they teach you how to think. That is why it was so hard for me freshman year, because I was like, my brain was trying to figure out how to put all of these thoughts together in a cohesive way while also making my model stand up, while also road tripping on the weekends because I was an irresponsible freshman and I would road trip 12 hours in a day to go see a concert with my best friends from my hometown and then drive straight to studio, sleep deprived. Anyways. The University of Florida has a 4-year undergrad program and a 2-year graduate program. As a freshman, you aren't really required to be accepted into a said program yet until after your sophomore year. So that means you don't really need a portfolio, you don't really need prior experience, and literally just check architecture as the major you want to choose and hop in. Put your seatbelts on, because it's a wild ride. The first day, I had no idea what to expect. I was so nervous. Being a freshman in studio is really hard because you're like, what the heck is space? But everyone has to go through it. I promise it gets better. Some people realize it's not for them first or second semester, maybe even the third or the fourth. Some people fall in love with it. Like I mentioned earlier, after your 4th semester at UF, you have to participate in something called pinup, where it's basically you have a board and you have to put all of your projects that you've ever done on that board. The professors will look at your work, determine based on how much you've grown or like your skill set, your GPA, other factors, if you can proceed and if you can move on into upper division or not. They usually have to cut around like 20 or 30 people. They always tell you not to stress about it because as long as you're passionate about it, as long as you're trying, they see that. I was really stressed about it and I made it. So other schools have the 5-year program where you can kind of get your like master's out of the way. Pretty sure Auburn does that. I came in with a lot of credits from high school because I did AP classes and I dual enrolled. Pretty sure the highest math you have to take is pre-cal. I don't really know because I didn't have to do it. You do have to take physics, just physics 1. I did that at community college in the summer. So do what I did so it's easier. Taking physics with architecture is not fun. My friends have attested to that. At the University of Florida, you are put into these studio classes and then you also take like history or theory. You get older structure and materials. I think recently they're trying to transition into more digital. That is kind of one of the downfalls to the program. They don't really teach you like Revit in the way that you learn at the office, but I think they're changing it. UF's program is pretty great because you have a plethora of clubs that you might want to join. You can become an ambassador, you can join Architrave, which is kind of like the editors synthesize everyone's work in the program. AIAS, they're also very good at helping you find careers because UF is really big on where are our students going to end up after we graduate. There are career fairs, there are meeting with architects in the Gainesville community. Yeah, it's very immersive. We're gonna hop into some pros and cons. Pros. Oh my gosh, the people that you meet. One of the majors that you spend so much time with people in your year because you are literally always at studio with them, spending super late nights, going to class for 3 hours every day. That is one of my favorite parts about the whole experience because, you know, like you can do hard things, but when you do it with your friends, it makes it a little better. You get to really use your creativity in your major. Like, you don't really have to memorize formulas for a chemistry exam, but you do have to memorize the different patterns of bricks, what sides face what sides, names of all the shapes of them. Oh, another pro. You establish such a great work ethic if you are trying. I think another pro is you get to start to view the world in such a beautiful way. You don't look at things the same because design can literally stem from anything at all. It's creating something out of nothing. Cons. Your sleep, your health, your sleep schedule, and your general health. It can be very taxing on yourself. Emotionally, physically, you have to get used to your own routine, and if you're gonna pull all-nighters, time management skills like making meals for yourself, eating healthy, exercising, giving yourself rest, giving yourself mental breaks. It uses your brain. You have to come up with an idea and then achieve that idea before class the next day. Honestly, sometimes I kind of feel like I'm in Cupcake Wars or like the Great British Baking Show where there's a timer running.
I have to restart my potatoes.
And you don't know what to do. For the amount of work that you're putting into it, if you don't really care that much, I don't know if it would be worth it. Some architecture majors don't even become architects. There's a nice little podcast called Line Waits Over Coffee. This former UF student kind of highlights these people who majored in architecture but took it a different way. Aren't really actual architects at offices, but are maybe like authors, or they designed the inside of video games. This was from my personal experience. It's like really hard when you're constantly comparing your work to other people's. Another con is it is one of those majors that if you start late, you can't just like not do the 4 years. You have to go through D1 to D8. So I guess my piece of advice in that area is if you are thinking about architecture, go for it. If you don't like it, it's okay. That is what college is all about. I could just sit here and listen to myself talk about architecture all day, but I called some friends of mine and they're gonna answer some other popular questions that people have asked me in the past. So let's go.
First question, what are the struggles of being an architecture major? This was more prominent when I first started out my first year, which is the lack of confidence I had in my work. So when you are thrown into this major that you have no background in, like it's not like anything you've learned in high school, you're gonna be clueless, or at least that's how I felt. And I just was so afraid to speak up in class because I always felt like my answer was just gonna be wrong, or like just anything I said was wrong. I think that really hurt me at first, like not being able to explain my ideas and opinions to the professors.
I would say the biggest struggle you're going to face in architecture that pretty much anyone will tell you is there will never be enough time. And that's okay, you just have to push through, but be prepared. Everything is very time intensive. And then also I would say something I wish someone had told me is you have to get really comfortable presenting, because so much of architecture, almost every class actually, is you having to put your individual work up and explain it to your class and present it to your professors. And at times that can actually be really scary. So you just have to really be confident in yourself and be ready to present your work and explain it to people.
This is super informal, but I'm gonna answer your questions. You're texting me right now, Alexa, stop texting me. What are the struggles of being an architecture major? Bro, there's a lot, but it's also like not that big of a deal. It's just time management. That's all it is. Like, I'm chilling half the time. If you don't like it, then you're not gonna stick with it. Like, there's no point.
I think the biggest struggle, especially in studio class, is just I'm not what the professor wants, and at the end of the day, it's like not about that. It's about like learning as much as you can from these people, you know, that have like all of this experience, because at the end of the day, there's so many ways in schools of thought on architecture. You do the most intense good work, the most rich work that you can do, and at the end of the day, like that's
like what you're putting out, and that's what you should be proud of, like not the fact that it's what your professor wants or what, you know, someone in your like architectural history class like likes.
Another thing I wanted to add was my fear of public speaking. I didn't really realize how much of your input and how much speaking you actually had to do. You start getting more comfortable with the people around you. You start to realize that you're here to learn and grow from the people surrounding you. So you just start becoming more comfortable with that idea. There shouldn't be any judgment.
The concepts that we have to process in class and with those assignments are sometimes pretty abstract and complex, really tedious, and takes a lot of time and patience. Since it's design work, always something that we can improve or work on. The projects never feel complete. The all-nighters isn't necessarily true for everybody. I've definitely had my handful of all-nighters, my friends would know that. Lack of sleep is something that sometimes people struggle with, especially during final seasons. Living at the studio, one I can personally relate to. For me, I find myself being in the studio a lot more than in my own apartment, and I honestly consider it my second home. Just trying to find a balance between academics and just your social life and personal time.
There are a few. First off is the amount of time it takes to create a project. There's also the issue of finding the drive to constantly be wanting to learn. This is also easier if you manage your time better. Criticism, just of yourself too. You'll see other people's ideas and you'll think, I wish I could have something as unique as theirs, where you might have a great idea, you're just beating up yourself because you see so many other great ideas. When you spend a lot of time on something, it often can feel personal, but over time you just have to realize that your professors and your friends have the best intentions for you, and they're only giving you that criticism because they want to help.
There are many. Workload that we got in our design class, it's deceptively time consuming. Most of the work is very, very open-ended in the way that you can work whenever you want to. And that gets really, really dangerous for like time management and stuff. End up spending like 8 hours on something you didn't think you were gonna take 8 hours to work on. The next one I have here is buying materials for your studio class. Before coming to university and before joining the School of Architecture, I just didn't factor that in as part of my budget. Materials and supplies and tools and glue and paper and everything for your studio takes up like a lot of money. Like you're gonna be dropping a lot of money. The grading in your design studio is very, very sort of subjective. Everything as far as design goes, you can't really grade a design.
I'm nervous. Okay. So I think one of the most difficult things to learn in the architecture program is to separate yourself from your work. It's really easy to like get wrapped up in the work, especially when you spend so much time working on it and you put a lot of effort into it and you're really excited to have it done. And then a professor comes by and says, I don't like that. The truth of the matter is that they're not going to like everything you do, and it's really just because you're still learning how to be a designer. Because they didn't like this one thing I did, my whole life is over and I should change my major. No.
Next one is favorite memory so far.
Especially the late night ones.
Spending a lot of time at the studio.
Very, very late in studio.
The late nights in the studio.
The late nights me and my friends would spend in studio together.
This one's actually really hard to choose because there's too many good ones, you can't pick. The ones that stick out to me are the times when we would literally just like, okay, well, first, this happens at like 2, 3 a.m. We would all literally just drop everything we were working on. It didn't matter how important it was, even if it's due the next day. We would pile into one of our cars and drive to McDonald's or Taco Bell or something. Take a break for once during the day and relieve some pressure that we've experienced.
Have to be all the little breaks we would always take as a group in studio. Go just get McDonald's randomly or ice cream. We all kind of needed a break at those moments because we'd all been working so hard and pushing ourselves. So it just felt really great and special to take that little break together.
Fave memory so far. Okay, like I said, it's a lot of time management stuff, and so you're putting in a lot of work in the studio. Well, at least at UF, I don't know about other schools, and those end up being like really good memories because you're like doing something that's kind of interesting and fun. Like you're not writing essays all night in the library, you're building something and designing something, and you're also hanging out with friends, talking and asking for their help or just etc. And it's really fun. It's also fun to get involved within the school, like the Beaux Arts Ball, which is this thing our school throws for like architecture students. It's like a dance at a bar. It's really fun. Like my roommates don't have a lot of close friends in their major because there's so many people there, but like in architecture there's like only 100 people and you spend a lot of time with them, so it's really fun.
Favorite memory so far? So many. But I think my favorite was one night it's probably like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, which is not that late for architecture studio. It was this year, first semester, and a bunch of us had to get on our scooters. None of us had our cars to go to Taco Bell, and we got a shitload of Taco Bell, and we went through the Taco Bell line on our scooters. It was the first time. Actually, Alexa rode in the back of my scooter. It was so funny. I was so scared I was gonna kill us. But it was worth it for the Crunch Wrap. Always worth it for the Crunch Wrap.
I think one of my most memorable moments would be Thanksgiving potluck in D1. After I found a critique in our Design 1 studio, our class decided to hold a potluck with everybody in our studio the night after our final in our classroom. And that was the first time our entire class decided to come together and hang out.
My favorite memory in architecture school was going to bed at 4 a.m. and setting my alarm at 5 a.m. and not having enough time to reach REM sleep, so I sat there in my bed until I heard the alarm. I got up, went to the bus station, pitch black, and went back to the architecture studio.
One of my favorite memories in specific is my row for the class that I was in. We were 4 desks conjoined in a row for my class. We made our row window look like the glass window in Minecraft with masking tape just late at night, and we decorated our row, and it was really cute.
A lot of us bonded really quickly and became really good friends. I had an assignment using this blue foam board stuff we bought at Lowe's. We actually cut off a piece of the foam board and hung it up on the walls and drew a little target on it and used it as a dartboard. We had made darts out of thumbtacks for the sharp bit and then wooden linears and paper fins on the back. And we set up a scoring system and we had competitions and everything. With that little dartboard game, we became friends and we were laughing with each other even though we didn't know each other. It was just so much fun.
All the little shenanigans that we do in the studio. This past semester, a couple of my friends, Wesley and Josh, would have rubber band wars in the studio, and as much as it annoyed us beyond belief, it was a lot of fun, and honestly I missed messing around with people in the studio so much.
I actually really like UF's architecture program for a lot of reasons, and I actually really love the way that they organize the program, especially the emphasis on hand drawing and hand modeling. I've just really enjoyed the process of hand drawing in particular. I feel like there's a much stronger creative link between the hand and the mind versus starting off right away with the computer. I don't think I would have been able to think as creatively or design as well if they hadn't started us off with the hand drawing and stuff. So I really like it.
Question 3. UF's architecture program is very, from what I come to hear from other students, it's very design based. It's not necessarily a lot of math or science or anything like that. It's very artistic in comparison to other schools. Our school is a 6-year program as opposed to a 5-year program, which most schools are a 5-year program. You apply for your master's, and if you want to go to another school, you might have difficulty transferring your credits from UF to a different school because their classes are kind of different from the 6-year program that we have, if that makes sense. But I think UF's architecture program is incredible. It's very highly rated, really interesting, and it's fun, and the staff is great. They all kind of support each other and support you. And it's called 1DCP, which is really nice. So we get to know students within the landscape architecture program, the interior design program, the architecture program, construction management program, and urban planning programs. And it's really interesting how we're all intertwined, obviously, and we're all in the same college, and we they kind of force us to interact in a lot of places, so that's really nice. It's easy to take minors and all the other things. And there's also sustainability. Honestly, the staff is what's the best thing, because you grow so close to them. It's great.
So many thoughts. If you are I need real world experience, that is the only thing that I need. I need to learn how to do all this digital stuff, because that's all that is used in firms today. That's not really what UF teaches you for your first 2 years. Drafting and having a good basis of actual design tools, learning how to conceptualize space, use rhythm and all of these things in a way that they're actually useful to you in the future. And it just helps you learn how to build actual things that are actually going to stand, because you don't understand, how structures necessarily work in the physical when you're working on the computer.
In light of current events with the Black Lives Matter movement, many of the schools, UF and the School of Architecture, have a lot to improve on. I'd say my experience at UF's architecture school has been pretty great. Studio culture, being able to surround yourself with a group of people who are passionate and interested in the same things as you are, who understand the struggles, definitely bring you closer together. And I've also been able to be quite active in student orgs within and outside of architecture, the Vietnamese Student Org and AASU, the Asian American Student Union. I'm also involved in the Mentor-Mentee program for MFOS. In ARC School, I'm involved in NOMAS, National Organization of Minority Architecture Students. Some of the professors that you get to meet are really passionate about what they do, and you can really tell by the way that they lead their classes. Really able to have a more engaging classroom setting, being able to have an instructor who just knows your name, it really makes a difference in your learning experience.
From what I understand is that other schools often will have you learn about materials and structures within your first couple years. UF's approach is more design at first.
Different than anything I could have ever imagined. It just gave us a sense of what it feels like to create with your hands, literally modeling something in your hands and being able to look at it and turn it and say, oh, it doesn't look good on this side, you have to change it on this side. I think it's so beneficial to begin to think like a designer with actual real models and drawings. It helped me realize exactly what architecture was. Architecture is the art of creating spaces. It's a little bit of art school, it's a little bit of engineering, it's a lot of things meshing together in ways you didn't think they were going to. UF's program is and always has been a really strong place to start to wrap your head around what that means. I'd never even taken a drawing class before college. I'm very visually, artistically impaired. Me and everyone else have progressed and learned so much.
UF's architecture program forces you to really hone in on your conceptual ideas in the beginning. I really think that fosters better development of buildings later on in the program. In the beginning, it's really easy to get frustrated that you're not building real buildings. Go into this program thinking, oh, I'm gonna design all these cool things. And then your professor's like, do a diagram again. And you're like, what is this? Think about the real meaning behind the stuff that you make.
The best advice I can give for managing social life in architecture is to maintain a schedule. Starting early in the morning on your architecture work can help you get it done faster, and then you have so much more free time in the evening to spend with friends. I would also say, honestly, just making any free time you have a social event, whether it be like lunch, dinner, you need a coffee because you're super tired.
How do you balance a social life with studio? It's pretty easy. Social life comes first. In my book, like, I can always sleep in the weekend. If something comes up and like my friends are doing something and I don't want to miss it, like I obviously am gonna go do that, and then I'll just go to the studio after and like have a late night. My freshman year, I would go home like every weekend, and I regret that obviously because it's stupid. Social life is like what makes college worthwhile, I think. And obviously getting an education is amazing, but they're like equal, I guess. It's easy to balance if you time manage, and also in your head, like you're not gonna sleep as much as you used to.
How do you balance social life with studio? I don't. The hardest thing is picking which social life you want. So I think we all have a pretty like healthy social life in studio. So it's almost like hard to leave that sometimes when my roommates are like, oh, we want to go out like to mid, which is for people who aren't UF, it's like our bar scene, you know, like it's hard to leave because like those are your such good friends in studio, and you're like, this is the most fun, you know. And it's just like if you don't want to pull all-nighters, like you don't have to. Like I pulled all-nighters because I wanted to stay with my friends, and it's like hard to leave. If you can balance your social life. If you want a social life outside of studio, you just go in there and you get your shit done and you leave.
Time management is the key to balancing your social and school life. And while that's true, I think that's a lot easier said than done. I think the biggest thing to remember is to know how to prioritize what's important to you, know how much time you need to dedicate to those things. Even if, school and extracurriculars are a priority to you, you should still set aside time for your social and personal time, just to de-stress, even if it's just for an hour. I think this is really important for your health, and otherwise, if you don't take breaks, you're just gonna burn out, and that's physically and mentally draining, and that's not gonna help you in your projects at all. Being able to say no to other people, you might not be able to go out every weekend with your friends. I know this can be difficult to do, even I have trouble doing that. It's really necessary, especially when it comes to making choices.
To create a routine that you know you work best under. For me, creating a routine that I worked during the day, I was able to have my nights to myself. So I joined a service fraternity that got me involved in a lot of other Gainesville services and Gainesville clubs. And I also got to create a bunch of friends outside of just architecture.
It's really, 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 really easy to just get sucked into the all-nighters, the working late, and the feeling that if one student stays late, it's because they'll do better work, so you also have to stay late so you can do better work. I'm definitely speaking from experience when I say that people usually don't stay horrendously late because they're doing well. You got to find a club, find a group that operates outside of the world of architecture so you can make friends that you're not going to see for 16 hours a day. It is always really, really good to find people that aren't doing what you're doing. That's a better college experience. Go to the football games, if there will be any. This is being filmed during the coronavirus. We found a salsa night on campus. I had never salsa danced in my life before. It's just good to do different things.
What a great question. This is a very hard thing to do because you're spending so much time with those people in studio. That was my script. Cut that out. Spending so much time with these people. I'm gonna be honest, it is really hard to keep those relationships with people outside of architecture. You just gotta like make time, like little things like having movie nights in your apartment, getting lunch with people.
What advice would you give someone who's considering majoring in architecture?
Talk to people.
Just be bold, trust yourself, and don't be afraid to try things.
It's like a very good degree.
Just to be open-minded to new ideas.
To not be too hard on yourself.
Be ready to have assignments that are so subjective, they're just paralyzing.
Everyone starts in the same spot.
If you're someone who likes to create, whether that be playing an instrument, making music, painting, or you're just into art, I think you would honestly love the major.
If you're considering it, look into it, do some research, ask some people.
To just have confidence in yourself as a designer.
I know for me, the biggest thing about architecture is I came to UF as like my last choice school. I wanted to go to the Rhode Island School of Design and I wanted to study like painting conservation and painting cleaning, all this different kind of stuff. And I didn't want to get an art degree from a public school. If you want to do anything in design, anything in like physical like design, like if you want to go to product design, furniture design, interior design, it gives you just like really, really good basic skills for like all of those things.
All your non-architecture friends will think that you're really cool.
Best experiences I've had creating things have been when I had confidence in myself and I really just kind of knew what I wanted to do and I went for it, regardless of what other people in the class were doing.
If the workload is the only thing that's like pushing you away, like shut up. Just, if you like the curriculum, do it.
It's just so rewarding. It's rewarding to see your ideas come to life. I just couldn't imagine a better feeling than designing someone's home that they're gonna live in, looking at it and think, oh my gosh, like I did that, I designed that. Those were my ideas built in the real world. That's the main reason why I love it.
If you're like, I'm not in love with building buildings, like I'm not in love with doing this, like do not fret. If you don't want to build buildings, if you don't want to design airports, you don't have to do those things.
Architecture is a collaborative effort, not just in studio, but also in the real world. The peers around you really have a large impact on your work. By working next to somebody and looking at their work, it really influences the decisions that you make.
You just have to remember that your love for what you create will show. That's why for me, I work so hard on doing initial sketches and trial runs, even if they fail, because when you show them in your final critique, it shows that your concepts are super well thought out and you have passion. If you're going out of your way to look for these videos, you're interested in the idea of architecture, there's no harm in trying it out and just taking your first semester to try out Design 1, because that's what I did. I originally was going to be an engineering major because I had a mathematical background and I didn't think I would be artistic at all. I actually watched Alexa's channel when I was deciding to change my major from engineering to architecture. Her channel and videos like hers showed me that I had a passion, and that's something I'm very grateful for.
Be ready to not know what to do. No one is a genius on the first day, and everyone is just as terrified as you are of the assignment. Make friends with people with cars. Carpooling is definitely a good thing, and I literally can't say this enough. If you can't draw, and you're scared of an artistic profession because you can't draw, I'm looking you in the eyes. You will learn how to draw. You will see improvement. Like that is a pinky promise.
One piece of wisdom I'm kidding. One piece of advice I would give someone looking to major in architecture is that we all understand how difficult it is. We've all been there. We all started in the exact same spot. I went in not knowing a literal thing about architecture or building or drawing, absolutely nothing. And I felt really overwhelmed and behind. And you start by just building a cube and you're like, what is space? I don't know. Upper division, you're making renders and you're using Rhino and you're building all these cool models. So 100% recommend it, and you just gotta stick it through and it will be rewarding eventually.
Make your studio a happier place, a place you actually want to go. It's a very fun place to be in college.
There's nothing like it. It's the best major.
Architecture is a love-hate relationship. That's all I got for you, so.
It's some hard stuff, but it's honestly really fun. I hope this video helped you out a little bit. If it did, comment down below, shoot me a DM. I love making new friends. If you are studying architecture, go you. Don't forget to go watch my other architecture videos. Get to see what week in my life actually looks like. I don't really know if I'm going to film any more weeks in my life, just because it took so much effort. I want to make good videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.